Chapter 1. The Fermenting Moonlight. Misty Vale in autumn was a breathtaking masterpiece, where vineyards stretched across rolling hills, dyed in brilliant gold under the fading sunlight. The grapevines quivered in the breeze, carrying the sweet aroma of freshly fermented wine, mingling with the crisp mountain air of the American West. This small town, nestled between valleys, was renowned for its winemaking, a long-standing tradition that had made it a destination for wine lovers and tourists alike, especially during its annual wine festival. Under the moon hanging in the sky, Misty Vale became more enchanting than ever. Yet beneath its peaceful facade, secrets and ambitions quietly fermented, much like barrels of wine aging in dark cellars. Stella Monroe stood behind the bar at Vine Whisper, a small yet elegant wine restaurant in the heart of Misty Vale. Her long, glossy hair was loosely tied back, with a few strands falling over her shoulders as she leaned forward to pour a glass of deep red wine for a customer. Her dark brown eyes shimmered under the restaurant's dim lighting, but her radiant smile was fleeting, a rare gem she guarded like a precious jewel, only revealing it for moments truly worth it. At 24, Stella led a simple, almost austere life, working tirelessly to help her parents pay off the enormous debt left behind after a fire devastated their family vineyard a few years ago. That fire had not only scorched the land, but had also burned away the Monroe family's dreams, leaving them with bank loans and unanswered questions. A lingering suspicion that it hadn't been an accident, though Stella had no proof. Tonight, Vine Whisper was livelier than usual, bustling with the excitement of Misty Vale's annual wine festival. Long wooden tables were draped in crisp white linens, adorned with bottles of newly released wines from local vineyards, ranging from delicate whites to bold reds. The cheerful chatter of guests, winemakers, tourists, and locals alike echoed through the space, blending harmoniously with the soothing melody of a violin played by a small band in the corner. Dressed in a simple white blouse and a black apron, Stella moved swiftly behind the bar, mixing drinks, pouring wine, and polishing glasses. Her eyes remained focused, yet every so often they flickered toward the large window, where moonlight bathed the vineyards outside, as if she were searching for something just beyond reach. "Stella, try this!" Mia, her cheerful blonde colleague, nudged a glass of rosé toward her with a playful grin. "It's a new blend from the Eastern Vineyard. They say it tastes like autumn." Stella shook her head, offering a faint smile. "I don't drink while working, Mia. You know that." But Mia was persistent, winking at her. "Come on, just one sip. It's the festival. Don't be so serious." The crowd around them started to cheer, clapping in encouragement. Stella, always the responsible one, always in control, suddenly felt the pressure of the lively atmosphere. With a quiet sigh, she lifted the glass and took a small sip. The delicate sweetness, tinged with a hint of tartness, spread across her tongue, warm, inviting, and utterly enchanting. One sip led to two, then three. Stella was never much of a drinker. She had always feared losing control, afraid of becoming as weak as her father had after the fire, when he drowned his pain in alcohol. But tonight, amid the music, the laughter, and the intoxicating aroma of wine, she let herself go for the first time in years. The wine flowed down her throat, making her head feel light, and before she realized it, she had drunk too much. Mia laughed heartily as she saw Stella start humming along to the music, a rare glimmer of innocence lighting up her deep brown eyes. "See? It's fun!" Mia shouted over the noise, pulling Stella onto the dance floor. Stella chuckled, embarrassed, letting Mia spin her around. Her steps were unsteady, yet a strange sense of freedom filled her heart. As she twirled, she lost her balance and stumbled hard into someone standing in the dimly lit corner of the restaurant. She crashed against a firm chest, strong hands catching her just in time before she hit the floor. "Ah!" she gasped, her voice slightly slurred from the wine. She looked up, and her brown eyes locked onto an icy green gaze, gleaming under the moonlight streaming through the nearby window. The man was tall, clad in a simple leather jacket that masked his powerful presence. He stood motionless, like a statue, his gaze sweeping over her with a mix of curiosity and surprise. His dark brown hair was neatly trimmed, his sharp jawline exuding an air of quiet dominance, and every movement he made, though controlled, radiated an undeniable intensity. In her intoxicated state, Stella didn't think. She looked at him, a shy smile curving her lips, and before her rational mind could stop her, she rose on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him, a bold, fleeting kiss filled with unexpected passion. Her lips met his, soft, warm, carrying the sweet taste of the rosé she had just drunk. It was a moment of pure impulse, like a spark of electricity splitting the night sky. Stella pulled away almost instantly, giggling awkwardly. "Sorry, might be a little drunk." She turned and stumbled away, disappearing into the crowd, leaving the man standing there, frozen in the shadows. That man was Elliot Caldwell, 32 years old, the enigmatic CEO of Caldwell Vineyards, the largest wine empire in the region, a powerhouse that ruled over Misty Vale with ambition and influence. He had come to the festival tonight disguised as an ordinary guest, intending to observe his competition in the ruthless wine industry without drawing attention. Elliot was a man of absolute control. Every decision, every move he made was meticulously calculated, from running his company to eliminating his rivals. He was not accustomed to surprises. He was not used to being swept away by anything or anyone. But Stella's kiss, sudden, impulsive, brimming with unrestrained passion, had shattered the ice within him. Elliot stood still, his fingers instinctively brushing his lips, where her warmth still lingered. His heart, always kept in silent restraint, now pounded in a strange, unfamiliar rhythm, as if it had been awakened from a deep slumber. His eyes followed her unsteady silhouette as she disappeared into the crowd, her long, dark hair flowing behind her, her carefree laughter echoing through the night. She had no idea who he was, probably just thought he was another drunken stranger in the festival crowd. But to Elliot, she was no longer a stranger. That kiss, though merely a reckless act from a tipsy girl, had left an indelible mark in his mind. He turned and stepped onto the restaurant's terrace, where the moon cast its glow over the sprawling vineyards beyond. The night breeze carried the scent of wine and dry leaves, yet Elliot felt nothing but the lingering sensation of her lips against his. His green eyes darkened, a hunger stirring deep within him, an unquenchable desire, like a dormant ember suddenly reigniting. He pulled his phone from his coat pocket, his voice cold and commanding as he dialed a number. "Find out who she is, her name, where she lives, everything, right now." On the other end of the line, his ever-reliable assistant, Marcus, responded immediately. "Which woman, sir?" Elliot clenched his jaw, his gaze never leaving the spot where Stella had vanished into the crowd through the window. "The woman who just kissed me at Vine Whisper. Find her, Marcus. I need to know who she is." Marcus hesitated for only a second, surprised by his boss's unusually urgent tone, but he knew better than to ask questions. "Yes, sir. I'll start immediately." Elliot ended the call, slipping the phone back into his pocket. His expression was sharper than ever, his mind racing. He didn't know her name. He didn't know who she was. But none of that mattered. That kiss had changed everything. It had awakened something inside him that he never knew existed. Elliot Caldwell, the man who controlled an entire wine empire, the man who had never let anyone or anything shake him, was now consumed by the thought of an unknown girl from a fleeting moment of drunken impulse. He stood there under the moonlight, whispering to himself, "She's interesting." A cold smile curled on his lips, and in his mind a plan was already beginning to take shape, a plan to make her his, whether she wanted it or not. Welcome to Soul Stories. Life can be overwhelming, but here we share heartfelt tales to bring you peace, joy, and inspiration. Your support, every comment, like, and follow means the world to us. It motivates us to create more meaningful and uplifting stories just for you. Did our latest story touch your heart? Leave a "I am happy" in the comments if you agree. Subscribe now and be part of a community that spreads love, kindness, and positivity. Let's make every day a little brighter, together. Chapter 2. The Scent of Wine and Secrets. The morning sunlight filtered through the golden grape leaves outside the window, casting warm streaks on the worn wooden floor of Stella Monroe's small room in Misty Vale. She lay curled up in bed, eyes tightly shut, but her mind refused to stay still. Faint memories from last night drifted back like gentle waves, pulling her out of her restless sleep. Stella shot upright, clutching her forehead, a small groan escaping her dry lips. A dull headache lingered, a lingering trace of the wine festival at Vine Whisper. But what made her want to scream wasn't the hangover. It was the fleeting image of a stranger, cold green eyes and the reckless way she had kissed him without a second thought. She yanked the blanket over her head, mortified beyond words. "Oh God, what did I do?" she murmured, her voice trembling. She remembered crashing into him and, in a moment of wild abandon, rising on her toes to press a bold, fleeting kiss against his lips. It was enough to make her flush with embarrassment just thinking about it. Stella Monroe, who had lived cautiously, who had kept herself in check ever since her family's vineyard burned down 3 years ago, had done something she had never imagined, kissed a complete stranger while drunk. She stumbled out of bed, her bare feet touching the cold floor as she walked over to the small mirror hanging in the corner of her room. Her long dark hair was a tangled mess, her deep brown eyes clouded with exhaustion, and her face was still burning as she whispered to herself, "It was just one time. He was probably drunk too. He'll forget it right away." Shaking off her thoughts, she dressed in her usual work attire, a crisp white shirt and a dark green apron, then stepped out of her house determined to put last night behind her and return to Vine Whisper. Work was her anchor, not just for the paycheck, but because it was how she helped her parents pay off the enormous debt from the vineyard fire. She couldn't let one small mistake distract her. Never. When Stella arrived at Vine Whisper, the remnants of last night's festival still lingered, empty wine bottles scattered across tables, crumpled tablecloths, and the faint aroma of wine in the air. Mia, her ever-cheerful blonde co-worker, was wiping down the tables with a mischievous grin. "Good morning, festival star," Mia teased. Stella scowled, gripping a cloth tightly. "Don't bring it up," she muttered. Mia burst into laughter. "Oh, come on, you kissed someone, didn't you? I saw it. It was amazing." Stella's face turned crimson as she spun around. "I don't remember anything, so stop talking about it." Throwing herself into work, she focused on mixing drinks, pouring wine, and polishing glasses, the familiar motions helping her push away the hazy memory. But every time her gaze flickered to the dark corner of the restaurant where she had collided with the stranger, her heart pounded a little faster. She shook her head, convincing herself it was nothing. A foolish moment, a drunken mistake. She would never see him again. But she was wrong. As the sun set, Vine Whisper filled once more with winemakers, tourists, and Misty Vale locals eager to indulge in fine wine after the festival. Stella was pouring a glass of bold red wine when the wooden door swung open, letting in a rush of crisp mountain air. She glanced up, and her breath hitched. A tall figure stepped inside, moving with quiet authority, as if he owned the space. He wore a simple leather jacket, his dark brown hair neatly trimmed, his cold green eyes scanning the room. Then he strode toward the bar and took a seat directly in front of her. When he looked at her, a flicker of amusement lit up his gaze. Stella's pulse quickened, but she wasn't entirely sure it was him. He seemed distant toward everyone around him. When Mia playfully asked, "What can I get you?" he answered curtly, "Red wine," his deep voice dry, devoid of warmth. But when Stella approached, his lips curved into a smirk. "Well, well, the little drunk girl. Your strongest red, please." Stella froze mid-pour. He remembered. She stammered, You're... The man laughed, his deep voice teasing, but meant only for her. "What, did you forget me already? That kiss should have made history, sweetheart." Stella's face burned as she set the glass in front of him, her hands trembling slightly. Trying to keep her voice steady, she said, I didn't mean to. I was drunk." Elliot took a slow sip, then winked. "Drunk or not, I enjoyed it. You kiss better than you mix drinks. Should I double-check?" Stella shot him a glare, but she couldn't deny that something about his playful tone made her both irritated and amused. "My name is Stella," she said shortly, turning away to wipe the counter, anything to escape his piercing gaze. But Elliot wasn't like this with anyone else. With Mia or the other customers, he was cold, reserved, his icy gaze keeping people at a distance. But with Stella, he became a charming rogue. Every night, without fail, he showed up at Vine Whisper, sitting at the bar and ordering expensive bottles of wine, the kind of deep red from Napa that only the wealthy dared to indulge in. He sent wildflower bouquets through Mia, accompanied by handwritten notes. For the girl whose kiss keeps me up at night. E. Stella tucked them under the counter, torn between curiosity and bewilderment, but she never dared to ask him directly. He talked to her every night. To others, he was silent, but with her, he started with playful teasing. Do you think this glass has as much depth as your kiss? I bet you mix drinks better than you kiss. Should I test that theory? Then as the nights passed, his questions grew deeper. Misty Vale is such a small town. Don't you ever get bored? Who are you living for that keeps you stuck here? Stella brushed off his questions with vague answers, but his wit and mischievous charm made her laugh, no matter how much she tried to hide it. He told her exaggerated stories. I once made a bet with a guy in Napa. Whoever finished a bottle first would win. In the end, he passed out, and I forgot what I won. She couldn't help but chuckle, even if she suspected half of what he said was a lie. To her, he was a charming scoundrel. To everyone else, he was cold as ice. One night, as Vine Whisper neared closing, with only a few lingering customers left, Elliot stayed longer than usual. Stella wiped down the bar, trying to ignore him, but then he suddenly asked, Have you ever wanted to escape this place? The question made her freeze, her hand pausing mid-wipe. She turned to him, smiling sadly. I have, but I have to stay. For my family, debt, and other things. Elliot nodded, his green eyes flickering with a mix of determination and playful challenge. Family's a good excuse, but I bet you're just scared of trying something new. Then he leaned in slightly, smirking. Run away with me just once. I promise I won't let you get drunk again. Or maybe I will. He winked, making her laugh despite the weight in her heart. When he finally stood to leave, he left behind an empty glass, a large bill, and yet another bouquet of wildflowers. As Stella cleaned up, she heard a faint clink. Something small had fallen from the chair he had just vacated. She bent down and picked up a small silver pin, engraved with the logo of Caldwell Vineyards, a stylized C encircling a cluster of grapes. Her heart pounded. Caldwell Vineyards was the powerhouse that ruled over Misty Vale, wealthy, powerful, and surrounded by whispers of ruthless competition. She had heard her father speak of vineyards being bought out, or disappearing, like hers had 3 years ago. Stella clenched the pin in her palm, her expression darkening with suspicion. This man, Elliot, the one who was cold to everyone but playful with her, was he part of Caldwell Vineyards? Or worse, did he know something about the fire she had always doubted? She slipped the pin into her apron pocket, her mind swirling with unanswered questions, but she wasn't ready to confront him yet. One thing she knew for certain, he wasn't just another customer, and the way he looked at her, like she was a rare wine he wanted to claim for himself, made her feel both drawn to him and terrified. Chapter 3. Midnight in the Vineyard. Misty Vale was bathed in the soft glow of the late autumn afternoon, as the golden vineyards on the hills reflected the last rays of sunlight. Stella Monroe stood behind the bar at Vine Whisper, expertly pouring a glass of white wine for a tourist too busy snapping photos of the bottle to notice her movements. Her long, silky black hair was loosely tied back, a few strands falling over her shoulders as she leaned forward. Her deep brown eyes gleamed with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. It had been 3 days since she had found the silver badge engraved with the Caldwell Vineyards logo on Elliot's chair. The mysterious man with cold green eyes, the one who had turned her nights at Vine Whisper into a puzzle she couldn't stop thinking about. She had tucked the badge into her apron pocket, unwilling to confront him yet, but it lingered in her mind like a drop of red wine staining a white tablecloth, impossible to ignore. Stella couldn't stop thinking about Elliot. Since the wine festival, he had come to Vine Whisper every night, always sitting at the bar, ordering expensive bottles of wine and sending her anonymous bouquets of wildflowers, though she knew exactly who they were from. To the rest of the world, he was an iceberg, terse responses, an icy gaze that shut down conversations before they could begin. But when he was with her, he was something else entirely, a mischievous flirt, teasing her with witty remarks and playful glances that made her both annoyed and amused. That contrast between who he was with others and who he was with her only made her more curious, and though she refused to admit it, strangely drawn to him. During her break, Stella pulled Mia aside and lowered her voice. "Mia, what do you know about Caldwell Vineyards?" Mia raised an eyebrow, wiping her hands on her apron. "Why do you ask all of a sudden? They're the biggest players in town. Rich, powerful, but secretive. There are rumors they've crushed their competitors in ways no one dares talk about." Stella bit her lip, then pulled the silver badge from her apron pocket and held it up. "I found this from a regular customer. Could he be one of them?" Mia's eyes widened. "Oh my God, Stella. If he has that, he's not just one of them. He's probably a major player in Caldwell Vineyards, but no one really knows who they are. They're locked up tighter than a wine cellar." Stella shoved the badge back into her pocket, her heart heavier than before. If Elliot truly belonged to Caldwell Vineyards, what was he hiding? And more importantly, was he connected to the fire that had destroyed her family's vineyard 3 years ago? The fire she had always suspected wasn't an accident? By the time her evening shift began, Stella was busy serving customers, but her eyes kept drifting toward the wooden door, waiting for a familiar figure. And right on cue, at exactly 8 o'clock, Elliot walked in. Tall, dressed in his usual casual leather jacket, his dark brown hair slightly tousled, and his sharp green eyes sweeping the room with their usual cold detachment. A curious tourist asked, "What do you do here?" He replied flatly, "Drink." His dry tone killed the conversation instantly, and the tourist awkwardly turned away. But when he took his usual seat at the bar in front of Stella, his face lit up with a teasing grin. "Well, well, my little drunk girl is back. I'll have the boldest red you've got, and don't go stealing my breath again like last night. I need to stay sober so I can admire you properly." Stella's face burned, and she shot him a glare. "Talk less. No one's stopping you from shutting up." Elliot laughed, his deep voice laced with amusement. "The angrier you get, the cuter you look. It's quite the dilemma for me." She poured his wine, trying to stay composed, but she couldn't deny that his teasing, infuriating as it was, somehow made her smile. When she set the glass in front of him, he took a slow sip, then leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough for her to hear. "I have a special bottle at my vineyard. Want to try it?" Stella froze, her heart skipping a beat. "At what vineyard?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. Elliot smirked. "That's a secret. Come with me tonight under the moonlight, just the two of us." She narrowed her eyes. "And what if I say no?" His smirk deepened. "Then I'll just have to make you regret missing the best wine of your life. Or," he paused, his voice dropping to a husky murmur, "maybe you're just scared I'll make you drunk again." Stella hesitated, a war waging inside her. Logic told her to refuse, to keep her distance. But curiosity won. Curiosity about him. Curiosity about that badge. "Fine," she said at last, "but don't try anything weird." Elliot grinned, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Weird is my specialty, sweetheart. But don't worry. I saved the best for you." That night after her shift ended, Elliot was waiting for her outside Vine Whisper, leaning against a black Jeep. His cold demeanor made a passerby instinctively step aside. But the moment Stella stepped out, his lips curled into a mischievous smile. "You're so slow. I almost fell asleep from missing you," he teased. Stella scoffed, climbing into the car, and they sped off into the night, toward Caldwell Vineyards, a place she never expected would change everything. Under the moonlight, Caldwell Vineyards stretched out like a silver sea, rows of grapevines glistening in the night breeze. Elliot led Stella down narrow paths, the only sounds being the rustling leaves and their footsteps on the soft earth. A vineyard worker approached and asked, "Sir, can I help you with anything?" Elliot responded coldly, "No." His icy tone sent the worker scurrying away without daring to look back. But when he turned to Stella, he winked. "See? I cleared out the whole world just for you. Don't disappoint me by making bad wine." Stella laughed, feeling a strange warmth at the contrast in his behavior. So ruthless with others, yet playful with her. They stopped in the middle of the vineyard, where a small wooden table had been set up with 2 glasses and a bottle of deep red wine. Elliot poured her a drink, his movements practiced, but his gaze never left her, watching her as if he were savoring her more than the wine. "Try it," he murmured, his voice laced with meaning. "This one is as bold as your kiss. Or am I remembering it wrong?" Stella blushed and took a sip. The strong, rich taste spread across her tongue, sending a shiver down her spine. They talked about wine. "So, how's my mixing?" "Better than yours." Then about life. "You've lived in Misty Vale all your life? I bet you sneaked off to taste wine before you were legal." The conversation grew deeper, the air between them heavier. Elliot stood up, stepping closer to her, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "I haven't been able to forget that kiss, Stella. It's been keeping me up at night, and now I need to check if it was real." Her heart pounded as he leaned in, his green eyes gleaming under the moonlight. "Don't run. I won't bite. Or maybe I will." Before she could react, he kissed her. This time it was deeper, fiercer than the fleeting kiss at the festival, a kiss filled with the taste of wine and something even stronger. Stella didn't pull away. Her hands clutched his shirt as she let herself sink into him, her emotions shattering like drops of spilled wine. That night, under the vineyard's moonlit sky, they lost themselves in a storm of passion. Elliot was cold to the world, but with her he was something else. A playful rogue with a touch of tenderness. Between kisses, he murmured, "You're more dangerous than wine, Stella." Then with a possessiveness laced with teasing, he whispered, "Don't blame me if you end up addicted to me." He was the first to touch her like this, the first to make her feel alive, not just existing, but truly living, for the first time in years. The next morning, Stella woke up in a small cabin near the vineyard, a simple wooden house nestled among the grapevines. She lay in a small bed, a thin blanket draped over her, golden sunlight spilling through the window and warming her skin. Elliot was gone, but on the wooden table beside her sat a bottle of red wine and a handwritten note. "You are a taste I can't resist. E." Stella picked up the note, her heart a mess of happiness and uncertainty. Last night had been real, but who was he really? She stood up, gripping the bottle tightly, determination flaring in her chest. She was going to find out the truth about the man who was cold to everyone, but maddeningly playful when it came to her. Chapter 4. Fermenting Secrets. Misty Vale was veiled in a thin mist on the autumn morning, the golden vineyards on the hills shrouded in an ethereal white haze. Stella Monroe stood behind the bar at Vine Whisper, pouring a glass of red wine for a regular customer, but her mind drifted back to that night in Elliot Caldwell's vineyard, the night she had let herself be swept away in a storm of passion. Her long, silky black hair fell loosely over her shoulders as she leaned forward, her deep brown eyes flickering with a mix of happiness, confusion, and doubt. It had been 3 days since she had woken up in that small wooden cabin near the vineyard, clutching the bottle of wine and the note he had left behind. "You are a taste I can't resist. E." She had made up her mind to find out who he really was, but she never expected the answer to come as swiftly as a mountain wind. The night before, after her shift, Elliot had been waiting for her outside Vine Whisper, as always. But this time, he didn't tease her immediately. He stood there, flashing his usual mischievous smile. "You're so slow. I almost thought you ran away from me." Stella had been about to roll her eyes, but before she could, he pulled her close. His voice was low, serious in a way she had never heard before. "I am Elliot Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Vineyards, and I want you by my side, Stella, not just for one night." Her heart pounded as the truth unraveled before her. Elliot wasn't just a charming rogue. He was the head of the most powerful wine empire in the region, a name spoken in hushed, reverent whispers. Now, standing in Vine Whisper, Stella felt the distance between them stretch like a deep canyon. He was a billionaire. She was just a bartender, working to pay off her family's debts after the vineyard fire 3 years ago. And yet she couldn't deny what was growing between them. The way he was cold to the world but teased her with playful words. The way he looked at her as if she were the rarest wine he had ever tasted. She sighed, gripping the bottle in her hands, wondering if she was foolish to even entertain the thought. That night, as Vine Whisper filled with customers, Elliot walked in, his presence commanding as always. He took his usual seat at the bar in front of Stella, his face lighting up with a playful smirk. Well, well, my little drunk girl. One bold red, please. Stella blushed, shooting him a glare. From that night on, Elliot pursued her relentlessly. He wasn't just at Vine Whisper every evening, always choosing the seat in front of her, ordering rare bottles from his private collection that made her secretly marvel. He also took her on drives along the winding mountain roads of Misty Vale. He gifted her exquisite wines like a 20-year-old red from Tuscany, accompanied by a handwritten note. For the girl who makes my heart drunk. E. Stella tucked them under the bar, caught between bewilderment and the undeniable pull of his irresistible charm. Stella slowly opened her heart. Despite the vast distance between them, she couldn't resist the way Elliot made her feel like she was the center of his world. His playful teasing, his mischievous glances, and the rare moments of sincerity he let slip when they were alone. But the past wouldn't let her be. One night at Vine Whisper, as she was mixing drinks, the door swung open and a woman walked in. Tall, slender, dressed in a form-fitting red dress. Her golden blonde hair was cut short and her light blue eyes gleamed with arrogance. Clara Hensley, Caldwell Vineyard's marketing director and Elliot's ex-girlfriend, stood in the middle of the restaurant, her gaze slicing through Stella like a sharp blade. She strode up to the bar, her voice honeyed but laced with thorns. You're Stella, right? I heard you're Elliot's new plaything. Stella froze, gripping the glass in her hand. But before she could reply, Clara let out a loud laugh and turned to the crowd. Look at this, everyone. A gold digger who thinks she can cling to Elliot Caldwell. Hilarious. Does she really think he's serious? Elliot is just toying with her, just like he did with me. Whispers filled the room, a few people chuckling under their breath. Stella felt heat rush to her face, not from embarrassment, but from a sudden, burning anger. Before she could respond, the door swung open again. Elliot strode in, tall, commanding, his cold green eyes sweeping over the crowd with an intimidating presence that instantly silenced the murmurs. He walked straight to the bar, pulling Stella behind him, his gaze softening only for her as his deep voice rang with unwavering certainty. Clara, you have no right to speak about her. He tilted his head, his smirk returning as he whispered to Stella, Don't worry, sweetheart. You're still the most beautiful thing in this room. Clara let out a sharp laugh, her voice dripping with ice. Choose her! Elliot, you forget me so easily. I know everything about you, and I'll make you regret this. Elliot's smirk didn't waver, but his eyes turned glacial. Try it, Clara, but don't come crying when I push you out of Misty Vale. Clara's expression flickered, something dark and vengeful brewing beneath the surface. But instead of arguing, she spun on her heels and stormed out, leaving behind an air of heavy tension. The room was silent. No one dared to meet Elliot's gaze as he stood there, radiating authority. Behind him, Stella's heart pounded. Her mind raced with questions. As the restaurant slowly returned to normal, Elliot turned to her, his voice low and intimate. Are you okay? Then with a smirk, he added, Clara is like spoiled wine. I should have tossed her out long ago. Stella looked at him, her emotions bubbling to the surface. Anger, doubt, a gnawing uncertainty. Elliot, her voice trembled. Are you serious about me? Or am I just a game? Like she said. She took a step back, her hands tightening into fists. I won't be something you play with and throw away. Elliot froze. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, an unfamiliar vulnerability. Then with a low chuckle, he grabbed her wrist and gently pulled her into a secluded corner, away from prying eyes. With anyone else, he would have ignored the accusation, responded with cold indifference. But with her, he smirked, his voice dropping into a husky whisper. A game. His fingers traced her wrist lightly. If you were a game, I lost the moment you kissed me that night. He pulled her closer, his deep green eyes locking onto hers with quiet intensity. You're everything to me, Stella. His voice was steady, unshakable. You're not a game, not some wine I sip and forget. Then without warning, he leaned in, his lips crashing onto hers in a deep, searing kiss. It was fierce, filled with longing and raw truth. The taste of wine and something sweeter, something real lingered between them. Stella felt her heart melt, her doubts washing away in the warmth of him. When they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers, his smirk returning. "Do you believe me now?" he whispered, his voice playful yet tender. "Or do I need to kiss you again to prove it? I'm very good at this, you know." A laugh bubbled from her lips, tears brimming in her eyes, not from sadness but from overwhelming emotion. She nodded. "I believe you." Elliot grinned, pulling her tightly into his arms. "Good, because I'm never letting you go, my little drunk girl." In that moment, under the dim golden glow of Vine Whisper, Stella knew the truth. Elliot Caldwell wasn't just the cold, untouchable CEO of Caldwell Vineyards. He was the man who had chosen her, above the entire world, and she had finally chosen to believe him. Chapter 5. The Shattered Truth. Misty Vale was bathed in the fiery glow of sunset, the vineyard stretching across the rolling hills, reflecting the golden-orange light like a sea of flames. Stella Monroe stood before the mirror in her small home, adjusting her long, silky black hair. Her deep brown eyes shimmered with happiness, tinged with a faint, inexplicable unease. 2 months had passed since Elliot Caldwell revealed himself as the CEO of Caldwell Vineyards and had relentlessly, playfully pursued her in a way that he reserved only for her. Their love had only grown deeper, a slow-burning fire that had ignited brighter than she ever imagined. To the world, Elliot was ice cold, but to her he was a charming rogue, making her laugh with his teasing remarks and mischievous glances. She had never thought she could love someone this intensely, but Elliot had changed everything. He had drawn her into his world of wine, a world filled with color and passion. The vineyard tours across Misty Vale, where they stood between the rows of grapes under the golden sunlight, the romantic dinners beneath the stars on the hilltops, where he would pour her wine and whisper, "You taste better than wine. Don't make me choose." Stella had slowly forgotten the distance between them, the billionaire CEO and the debt-ridden bartender, because every day, Elliot made her believe she was the center of his universe. But tonight, as she prepared to leave for Vine Whisper, her phone rang. Elliot rarely called. He preferred showing up unannounced just to tease her. Yet his voice on the phone was cold. "Don't go to work tonight. I'm picking you up." Then in a lower, familiar, playful tone, he added, "I have a special bottle in my secret cellar. Come with me?" Stella chuckled. "Stop making things up. I'm leaving now." She pulled on a light white sweater and jeans, her heart racing with both curiosity and excitement. Elliot arrived in his black Jeep, his tall frame draped in a casual leather jacket, his dark brown hair tousled as always. They sped through the winding mountain roads heading toward Caldwell Vineyards, but this time Elliot was silent, a strange, unsettling silence. When they arrived, he led her through an old wooden door hidden behind the grapevines, descending down a narrow stone staircase. Beneath the vineyard lay a secret wine cellar, cold, dark, lit only by the dim glow of hanging lanterns. It was vast, lined with towering stacks of oak barrels. The air was thick with the scent of aging wine and old wood. At the center of the cellar, a wooden table was set with 2 glasses and an unlabeled bottle of deep red wine. Elliot poured her a drink, his practiced movements precise, his emerald green eyes glinting as he handed her the glass. "Try it," he murmured, his voice low with meaning. "This one is as bold as your kiss." Stella flushed, taking a sip. The wine was rich, strong, its depth unraveling across her tongue, sending a shiver through her. They talked, him teasing. "So, how's my mixing?" "Better than yours." Then more serious. "Have you ever wanted to be something other than a bartender?" She relaxed, laughing at his jokes, letting herself enjoy the moment. But the mood shifted when a vineyard worker hurried inside. "Sir, there's an issue in the East Vineyard." Elliot turned, his voice instantly cold. "Handle it. Don't disturb me." The worker quickly left. Elliot winked at Stella. "I'll be back. Don't drink all my wine while I'm gone. I'd be heartbroken." He strode out, leaving her alone in the vast, dimly lit cellar. Stella stood, wandering curiously between the rows of aged wine barrels, her fingers trailing over the old wooden surfaces. Her gaze landed on a dusty shelf tucked into the farthest corner of the cellar, where the lantern's glow barely reached. A loose wooden panel caught her attention. Curious, she gave it a gentle tug, and the panel fell away. Behind it was a hidden compartment containing a bundle of aged documents, their pages yellowed and bound with a broken leather strap. The stack of papers spilled open. And then she saw it, a single name that sent her world crashing down. Monroe Vineyard. Her breath caught. She reached down, her fingers trembling as she lifted a page and read the words written in bold, damning ink. Eliminate Monroe Vineyard with a fire to remove competition. The document was signed by Victor Caldwell, Elliot's father, the man who had burned down her family's vineyard, the man who had destroyed her family, just to secure Caldwell Vineyard's power. She trembled, tears threatening to spill as footsteps echoed through the cellar. Elliot had returned. He walked in, his usual playful smirk in place. "You haven't wrecked my wine cellar, have you?" But he froze when he saw the stack of documents in her hands. Stella turned to him, her voice breaking. "What is this, Elliot?" "Your father. He burned down my family's vineyard. He destroyed my family." Elliot's smile vanished. His emerald green eyes darkened. He stepped forward, glancing at the papers, his voice low and serious. "Stella, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know." She stepped back, anger and pain rising like a storm inside her. "Didn't know? You're his son. Your family ruined my parents' lives. We've been drowning in debt because of him. How can I ever trust you when you're part of that family?" Elliot stood still, his gaze heavy with sorrow, his usual teasing demeanor nowhere to be found. "Stella, I'm sorry. I didn't know my father did this. He never told me, and I never asked. Back then, I was studying abroad in England. I wasn't running the company yet." His voice was hoarse as he reached for her hand. "But I am not him. I love you, Stella. I never wanted you to be in pain. I will find a way to make this right. I swear." Stella shook, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Make it right? You can't change the past, Elliot. My family lost everything because of your father. And I love you, but right now, all I feel when I look at you is hate." She turned away, rushing up the stone staircase, leaving him standing there in the wine cellar, her heart breaking with every step. She wanted to believe he was innocent, but this truth was too big, too painful. She ran out of Caldwell Vineyards, disappearing into the night, not looking back even when she heard him calling her name. Elliot didn't chase after her immediately. He stood frozen in place, gripping the documents tightly, his expression darkening with a newfound determination. He had always known his father had made ruthless moves to build the powerful empire that Caldwell Vineyards was today. But now he needed to know exactly how far those moves had gone. He returned to the wooden table, flipping through each page of the files Stella had left behind. And the truth hit him like a hammer. It wasn't just Stella's vineyard. Multiple families in Misty Vale had been destroyed by his father's ruthless business tactics. Fires, forced buyouts, crushing debts. It was all marked with Victor Caldwell's name. Elliot slammed his fist against the table, his voice low and raw. "Father, what the hell have you done?" He rose to his feet, his jaw clenched. This wasn't just about making things right with Stella. It was about uncovering the whole truth. And if his father was guilty of everything these documents suggested, then Elliot Caldwell would be the one to end it all. Chapter 6. Confronting the Past. Misty Vale was cloaked in the darkness of midnight, cold winds whispering through the silent vineyards. Elliot Caldwell stood in his office at the Caldwell Vineyards estate, gripping the documents that Stella had uncovered in the wine cellar. His emerald green eyes were dark, no longer holding the mischievous glint they did when he was with her. Now there was only anger and disappointment. For 3 days since Stella had left, he had investigated, digging through old records, combing through financial logs, and meeting with former employees of his father, Victor Caldwell. And the truth became clearer with every passing hour. It wasn't just Monroe Vineyard. Dozens of families in Misty Vale had been ruined by his father. Mysterious fires, forced land acquisitions, crushing debts, all of it to build the Caldwell Vineyards empire. Elliot left his office, driving through the winding mountain roads to his father's grand estate, a sprawling mansion perched atop a hill, surrounded by the vineyards that had once been the pride of their family. He strode inside, his tall figure draped in a dark leather jacket, his presence icy as he walked toward the man responsible for it all. Victor Caldwell sat in the Grand Lounge, a man in his 70s with silver hair and piercing green eyes, the exact same shade as his son's. He swirled a glass of red wine in his hand, his voice deep and measured. "It's late, Elliot. What brings you here?" Elliot slammed the documents onto the table. "Explain this." His voice was sharp, cold. "The Monroe Vineyard fire and all the others. What the hell did you do to them?" Victor glanced at the papers, his expression unchanged, but his fingers tightened around his glass. "Where did you find this?" Elliot's voice was deadly. "In the cellar, the one you thought no one would ever see. You burned down Stella's vineyard. You destroyed her family, and so many others. Why?" Victor sighed, setting his wine down. His voice was deep, weary. "Elliot, that was a different time, a time when ambition overshadowed morality. Back then, the wine industry in Misty Vale was a battlefield. Only the strong survived. I did what I had to do to protect our family, to give you the Caldwell name you have today." Elliot's fist slammed onto the table. "Protect our family? You destroyed theirs. Stella lost everything because of you. You think I want this name when it was built on the ashes of others?" For the first time, Victor's gaze flickered. Hesitation, something rare in the man who had always placed power above all else. He stood walking to the window, staring out at the vast vineyards. "I know I was blind. Back then, I thought it was the only way. But now I am old and I see the cost. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I don't regret giving you an empire." Elliot shook his head, his voice like ice. "I don't want this empire if it's filthy. I'm going to fix this. For Stella, for the others. I'll do it my way." Victor turned back, his expression unreadable. "Fix it? You think apologies and money will erase the past?" Elliot stepped closer, unshaken. "Number. But I can change the future. I'll restore the vineyards you destroyed. I'll pay back the families you ruined. And I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Stella and the people who deserve it." A long silence passed. Then unexpectedly, Victor nodded. His voice was low. "Fine. I'll authorize Caldwell Vineyards funds for this. I won't stand in your way." But then his gaze hardened. "But there will be consequences, Elliot. The Caldwell name will fall apart." For the first time that night, Elliot let out a small, cold smile. "That name isn't worth keeping. I'll build a new one, cleaner than yours." He turned, walking out of the estate without looking back, his heart heavy, but his determination burning stronger than ever. Victor stood by the window, watching his son disappear into the night, and for the first time in years, a flicker of regret crept into his cold heart. Elliot wasted no time. He personally met with the families his father had wronged, from small vineyard owners to merchants his father had driven into bankruptcy. He listened to their stories, their tears, their curses, and he committed every resource Caldwell Vineyards had to rebuild what was lost. But the most important visit was Stella. He arrived at her home, a small wooden house standing in the middle of the abandoned fields where her family's vineyard once thrived. Henry Monroe, her father, opened the door, his face wary. "What do you want?" Elliot bowed his head. His voice was low, steady. "I'm sorry for what my father did to your family. I didn't know before, but I do now, and I want to fix it." Henry's expression darkened. "Fix it? You think an apology can bring back what we lost?" Before Elliot could answer, another voice cut through the air. "Elliot, why are you here?" Stella stood in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice cold. "I don't want to see you." Elliot met her gaze, his voice hoarse. "Stella, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need you to know. I confronted my father. He admitted to everything, and I'm using Caldwell Vineyards to undo what he did, starting with your family." Her eyes flickered with emotion, but she turned away. "I need time. Don't come back." Elliot hesitated, then nodded. He placed a small bouquet of wildflowers on the doorstep, the same ones he used to send her. Then he turned and walked away, his heart heavy. But he wasn't giving up. Chapter 7. Forgiveness and Reunion. 6 months had passed since that fateful night in the wine cellar. Since Stella Monroe had uncovered the devastating truth about Victor Caldwell, the man who had burned down her family's vineyard to strengthen his wine empire. Misty Vale, the small town nestled among the vine-covered hills, was slowly changing under Elliot's hands. The barren lands once destroyed by Victor's greed were now coming back to life. Young vines sprouted from the once dry soil, their lush green leaves stretching toward the sun, whispering promises of new beginnings. Families who had lost everything, whether to mysterious fires or forced buyouts, now found relief in the financial fund Elliot had created. With Caldwell Vineyard's wealth and power, he worked tirelessly to repair the damage his father had done. He met with every victim, sat for hours in their humble wooden homes, listening to their stories with a quiet, unwavering gaze. Sometimes there was regret in his emerald green eyes, regret he no longer bothered to hide. At the Monroe family's small wooden house, once the heart of a thriving vineyard before the fire took everything, the air was different now. The once barren fields surrounding the home were now dotted with new vines, growing steadily under the care of Henry Monroe. The family's debts, once suffocating, were gone, paid off by a large sum from Elliot's fund. A note had come with the money. "I can't change the past, but I want to make it right. I still love you." Henry Monroe stood in the revived vineyard, his weathered hands brushing over the delicate young leaves. His voice was thick with emotion, tinged with doubt. "He's sincere, Stella. I've seen what he's done, not just for us, but for everyone. But I know you're still angry, and I won't blame you for that." Inside the house, Stella stood in the kitchen, gripping an old porcelain cup, her gaze distant as she stared out the window. Inside her heart, a battle raged. Her love for Elliot clashed violently against the hatred she held for his father. For 6 months, she had avoided him. Every time she heard the familiar rumble of his Jeep outside, she locked herself in her room, refusing to face the pain he reminded her of, but she couldn't deny it. He was still in her mind, his teasing words, his emerald green eyes always glinting with mischief, only for her. His voice raw with guilt, whispering in the wine cellar that night, "I didn't know, Stella. I'm sorry." She remembered the good, the vineyard tours, the starlit nights, the way he whispered, "You're more dangerous than wine, my little drunk girl." But she also remembered the bad, the damning words written on that old page. The Monroe Vineyard fire, executed by VC. The pain of knowing his father had destroyed her family. Could she ever forgive him, or would loving him mean betraying the years of suffering her family had endured? She wandered through the newly planted fields, her fingers brushing over the delicate vines, torn between resentment and the undeniable ache of missing him. Meanwhile, Elliot never stopped fighting. He personally met every family affected by his father's actions. The Thompsons, whose vineyard was lost in a mysterious accident 10 years ago. The Riveras, forced to sell their land for pennies. Dozens more, each with the same story. Elliot sat in crumbling homes, listening to their pain, his usual cocky smirk nowhere to be seen. His emerald green eyes no longer held arrogance, only determination. Using Caldwell Vineyard's wealth, he created the Misty Renewal Fund, hiring agricultural engineers to restore the land and personally delivering financial relief to every affected family. Not just to erase debt, but to give them a chance to rebuild. But he knew none of it would mean anything without Stella. One foggy morning, Elliot returned to the Monroe house. Henry Monroe was outside fixing the wooden fence when he saw him approach. His gaze was watchful, laced with both skepticism and curiosity. Elliot walked forward, tall in his dark leather jacket, his brown hair tousled by the cold mountain wind. His voice was low, steady. "I'm sorry, Henry, for what my father did to your family. I didn't know before, but I do now, and I want to make it right." Henry Monroe lowered his hammer, studying him carefully. "You've done enough. Our debt is gone. The vineyard is growing again." "But Stella," he sighed, "she hasn't been able to forget." Elliot nodded, his expression unreadable. "I know. I just want to see her one last time. If she can't forgive me, then I'll leave for good." Henry hesitated, then called toward the house. "Stella, come out here." The door opened. Stella stepped outside, still holding the porcelain cup. Her heart pounded as she took in the sight of him. He looked thinner, exhaustion clear in his face. His emerald green eyes, once so full of mischief, now held nothing but raw honesty. And something else, a quiet kind of heartbreak. Then, he knelt before her. His voice was deep, hoarse with emotion. "Stella, I've spent 6 months uncovering the truth. My father didn't just hurt your family, he hurt dozens of others. I confronted him. He admitted everything. Years of blind ambition. I don't expect you to forgive me overnight, but I've used these past 6 months to rebuild your vineyard, and the others, to clear the debts, to start over, because I want to be worthy of you." He looked up at her, his emerald eyes dark with fear. Not of rejection, but of losing her forever. "I love you, Stella. But if you can't forgive me, I'll never come back." Tears streamed down Stella's face as she looked at him. Her heart screamed that she still loved him. Her mind told her to push him away. She took a shaky breath, her voice breaking. "Do you think an apology is enough? My family lost everything because of your father. My parents lived in debt. My mother cried every night for the vineyard she loved more than life itself. I love you, Elliot, but every time I look at you, I see his face, the man who burned everything I had." Elliot bowed his head, his voice raw. "I can't change the past, Stella. But I've changed Caldwell Vineyards. I won't let it be ruthless like my father made it. I've partnered with other vineyards, rebuilding the industry for sustainable growth. I want to start over with you, not under the old name, but as something new." Stella shook, her heart breaking under the weight of her emotions. She remembered the nights he held her, whispering silly jokes just to make her laugh. The way his emerald eyes lit up whenever she mixed a drink for him. She remembered the way he had knelt in the wine cellar, voice hoarse with regret, never hiding behind excuses like his father had. But she also remembered her mother sitting by the window, crying over the ruins of their vineyard. Her father growing thinner, working endlessly to pay off the debt. She loved Elliot, but was love enough to overcome the pain? She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I forgive you, Elliot, because of you. But I need time." Elliot exhaled, relief flashing in his eyes for the first time in 6 months. But he didn't push her. Instead, he let out a soft chuckle, a glimpse of his usual mischief returning. "My little drunk girl, I've lost to you, haven't I? I'll wait, even if you make me mix drinks for you forever to make up for it." He placed a small bouquet of wildflowers on the doorstep, just like the ones he used to send her. Then he turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Stella standing there. Her heart still conflicted, but lighter than before. The next 6 months saw Misty Vale's full rebirth. Elliot didn't just restore Stella's vineyard. He rebuilt dozens of others. The Thompsons replanted grapes on their old land. The Rivera family constructed a small wine cellar of their own. Once charred fields were now covered in young vines. Elliot worked alongside agricultural engineers, establishing a network between local vineyards, ensuring that no one would be left behind. One day, Henry Monroe stood among the flourishing vines, watching the transformation. With a heavy sigh, he turned to Stella. "He's not like his father, my dear. I've seen what he's done. He truly wants to change." Stella slowly let down her walls. She watched as the vines grew stronger each day. She heard her parents laugh more than they had since the fire. And she saw that Elliot didn't just apologize. He proved his remorse through action. Yet every time she thought of him, her heart tore in two. One part wanted to run into his arms. The other wanted to push him away forever. Until one evening, as the sunset bathed Misty Vale in golden crimson, Elliot returned. Henry Monroe met him in the vineyard, his voice calm. "You're still not giving up, are you?" Elliot nodded, his emerald eyes filled with quiet determination. "I can't. I need her." Stella stepped outside. Her heartbeat thundered as their eyes met. Elliot knelt before her, voice deep and steady. "Stella, I've done everything I can to make things right. Not just for you, but for everyone my father hurt. I can't change the past, but I want to build the future with you." He lifted his gaze, raw with emotion. "Forgive me, and let me have the chance to be with you." Stella looked into his pleading green eyes, her vision blurred with tears. And at last, she nodded. "I forgive you, Elliot, and I want to be with you." Elliot laughed, his arms wrapping around her as he spun her in the air. Between the vines they had rebuilt together. My little drunk girl, I finally won. Together they founded Misty Harmony Vineyards, a new empire built on collaboration and sustainability, uniting every vineyard in Misty Vale. A year later, among the revived vines of Stella's family vineyard, Elliot knelt again, this time with a wooden ring carved from grapevine, engraved with S and E. With a teasing grin, he murmured, "Marry me, or do I have to make terrible wine to earn your forgiveness forever?" Tears of joy spilled down Stella's cheeks as she laughed. Marry! Their wedding was small, held in the heart of the vineyard, surrounded by family and close friends. Victor Caldwell attended, his gaze tired yet sincere. "I was wrong, Stella. I accept you, and I accept the way Elliot has changed everything." He left shortly after, finally letting go of the past. 2 years later, they welcomed a baby girl into the world. They named her Ember Dash, a symbol of fire, love, and rebirth. Elliot whispered to Stella, holding their daughter in his arms, "You are everything to me." And Stella smiled, finally at peace in the life they had built together. The story of Stella and Elliot was one of forgiveness, redemption, and renewal. It taught that love and sincerity could heal even the deepest wounds of the past, but only when followed by action. Elliot hadn't just apologized. He had dedicated his life to righting his father's wrongs. He had proven that people could change and rebuild from the ashes. For Stella, forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing love over hatred. It meant believing in the power of rebirth. And in the end, they built a legacy not on power, but on compassion, trust, and the vines that symbolized healing and hope. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.